When I paint digitally, I don't think about layers or filters. I think about drawing, values, edges and temperature. In this video, I'll show you how I bring traditional painting techniques into Procreate to create a realistic tabby cat that feels alive, not just rendered. Let's get started. First of all, let me show you the reference photo, which I was able to use with the permission of @Margaret_Art. This is one of her lovely cats, Fonzie, and I thoroughly enjoyed painting him. First of all, I had to decide what I was going to do with this reference photo. Everybody sees something different in their subject matter. I saw the downward gaze, the cat's green eyes, and the movement of that fur, so that is what I've painted. No one can tell you what you see. It's very unique to every individual, but whatever that thing is, that is what you'll paint. So always lean into it, like I have here. I have exaggerated the green and arranged my brushwork so that the eye falls onto the central point of focus. So understand what it is you are trying to paint, because this will help you with your choices later on. The brushes I have used in this painting are the turpentine, Derwent, 6B compressed, wet acrylic, stucco and carbon stick. Notice all these brushes make different marks. I would recommend picking a handful of brushes that you like and only using these for all your Procreate artwork. You do not need lots of brushes, just a few that you understand how to use really well. I have done the majority of this painting on one layer. At this point, I really liked what I'd done, so I started a new layer to preserve my brushwork. I then started a new layer after this section for the same reason. So there is no hard fast rule to how I use the layers panel. Just bear in mind the wet brushes work best when you have pixels to move around. So starting a new layer, if you want to take advantage of this effect, may not be a good idea. Number 1, drawing. The simplest way to get this correct is to place your reference photo in your layers panel and then draw around the main areas on a separate layer. You can then toggle this layer on and off during the painting process to keep your drawing correct. This will allow you to be much freer with your brushwork without having to worry about your drawing. I then set my canvas board up just like this with my reference photo on the left and my painting on the right. You can import your reference photo by going to the Settings, Canvas, Reference, then import your photo. I am using a very old iPad with a 2nd generation Apple Pencil. Number 2, values. Value basically means how light or dark is it. If I turn my painting into black and white and also the reference photo, you will see I have pushed the values a little in my artwork. I have blocks of mid values, light values, mid values, dark values, and then light values. I do not have such obvious separation of my values in my reference photo. By changing my values, I have created more contrast. Contrast always creates more drama in your artwork, so play about with these if you can. You'll also notice that I do a general blocking of my average values. I start with limited detail and just refine as I'm going along. If you are aiming for something that feels painterly and loose, this is the way to do it, because I am genuinely leaving some areas unfinished whilst adding more detail in my area of focus. I am making decisions on what to leave and what to develop as I'm going along. For example, I left these areas of green because I really liked the colour. This then led me to push this colour a cooler red. Red and green look amazing together because they are opposite colours. Number 3, edges. Understanding edges and how to vary them is really important for this style of painting. If you are aiming for a fine art feel, you will need a selection of hard, soft and lost edges. Your brush selection is really important here. The 2 brushes I am using that will give me a lost edge are the carbon stick and the turpentine brush. When using the carbon stick, you will need to adjust the size so it's larger and then use the pressure sensitivity of your pencil to create lost edges. This is really good for a soft fur effect, and you can see where I've laid these strokes around the edge of Fonzie's face. The turpentine will give me a different effect, but I can still use it for lost edges. I can just pull the 2 colours into each other like this. You'll need to have all your brushwork on one layer for this to work and turn the opacity up. For my soft edges, I can use the 6B compressed, stucco and wet acrylic. You need to experiment a bit with the pressure sensitivity of the pencil and also the opacity and size of the brush. The larger the brush and the lower the opacity, the softer the edge will be. A harder edge can be achieved with the 6B compressed and the wet acrylic if I turn the opacity up and reduce the size. I have used my wet acrylic for both this soft area up here and also my hard edges around the cat's eyes. It's really important to vary your edges. You need a mixture of all three. If you are unsure what should be lost, soft and hard, a simple rule is to have harder edges in your central point of focus, and as you move out, the edges get softer and then can be lost on the periphery. So it's replicating how the eye sees. Number 4, temperature. For a painting to be successful, it must have warm and cool temperatures in it. If the temperatures are all warm, it will look muddy. If they are cool, it will look chalky. Understanding your colour picker is essential here. This red is our warmest colour. As we move around both ways, the colours become cooler until they get to blue. Blue is our coolest colour. Everything is relative to what it's next to. So this red is warm, but when I put it next to this red, it looks cooler. As we go into each colour, we have our saturated colours over this side and our greys over this side. Even if I choose a grey like this one here, it will still be warmer than if I choose a grey from, say, a green colour, because orange is closer to red and so warmer. This is important because I am using temperatures to sculpt the form in my object. So I am using orange browns, violet browns, these are my warms, and then cooler blue greys and greens, these are my cools. Within these temperatures, I am also using colour opposites of green and red. Because green is cool and red is warm, it ensures I have both temperatures in my artwork. You'll notice from my reference photo I have pushed my colours. I've pushed my orange browns to red browns and I've pushed my greens cooler. You can push your colours and make them more saturated or change them completely. For example, you could replace a cool brown with a blue. However, you must keep your temperatures the same. Lastly, I'd also like to discuss brushwork. In order to get this painterly effect, you need to build up your brushwork in lots of strokes on top of each other. I use lots of different brushes to give me the variety of marks. I am also continuously adjusting the size of my brush and its opacity, pretty much after every stroke. I lay a stroke, see how it looks, and then if I don't like it, undo it. If I do, carry on. I am using the brushwork to suggest the form of my cat and the movement of its fur. To do this effectively, you cannot overwork your strokes. I need to try and achieve my painting in as few strokes as possible. This will keep my artwork looking fresh and painterly. Those glassy eyes are the area where I have used the majority of my strokes, and I probably spent the most time on them trying to get that glassy effect. I used the wet acrylic and stucco brush. I did the eyes on their own layer. I then used my turpentine brush to soften that edge between my eye and the eyelid. For the whiskers, I used the Derwent. I did this on a separate layer too and then used my rubber on a very low opacity to rub out sections. This gives a much more realistic effect. You can use your rubber also as another brush and to take away brushwork in an interesting way. You need to experiment with the opacity of your rubber and the size. It works best on these upper layers rather than my main cat and background layer, because it reveals the brushwork from underneath. So that's my full process for painting this tabby cat in Procreate using traditional techniques. Hopefully you can see that it's not about the tools, it's about the principles. Drawing, value, edges and temperature are what bring your subject to life, no matter whether you're using oils, pencils or an iPad. The biggest takeaway here is to really observe what you see, not just copy your reference but interpret it. Push your colours, vary your edges and think about temperature as a sculpting tool. Those are the decisions that make your artwork feel expressive rather than mechanical. I hope this breakdown helps you feel more confident approaching your own digital paintings with a traditional mindset. If you enjoyed watching Fonzie come to life, please give this video a like and subscribe. I'll be sharing more Procreate studies and traditional inspired tutorials next month.